Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with ShadPS4, and ShadPS4 continues to get better and better. In fact, they put out a brand new video here titled 16 Playable Games on ShadPS4, version 0.14.1 WIP. Taking a look, this video is pretty lengthy. It's 2 hours and 7 minutes long and is worth checking out in my opinion. Now, I would say this video gives a real good perspective on the current state of ShadPS4, and if you are interested and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are within the GitHub link in the bottom of the description below. I don't hide my sources. On top of that, if you take a look at the description of this video, everything is timestamped and all the games are listed out. Now, not surprisingly, Bloodborne is not on this list. ShadPS4 got its name out there very early on for knowingly running Bloodborne. And there's a whole bunch more games here. I mean, Need for Speed, if you're a fan of that, Need for Speed Rivals, and also Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered are on the list. Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, and even more. And speaking about making improvements and videos, next up here we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Tanuki3DS. And Tanuki3DS just got a brand new update, and yes, it includes the ability to play videos. So at the time of filming, version 0.4.1 is the latest and greatest update, and I'd say this is a pretty big update. The very first bullet here, they say FMV playback support for pre-rendered cutscenes, subscribing to Mr. Sujano, etc. New screen layout options, new post-processing filter options, including sharp bilinear filter, motion control support when using a controller with motion input, and even more. Next up here, we're talking about game preservation and Myrient. Now, we talked about Myrient in yesterday's video, and if you haven't watched that, I do recommend checking it out. I recommend checking out all of my videos. Anyways, here at a very high level, Myrient server costs are too much for the person behind it, and they will be shutting down Myrient as of the end of March 31st. Anyways, there's a brand new subreddit titled Reddit Save Myrient. So taking a look at this subreddit, and it seems there's a whole bunch of people banding together to try to back up and preserve Myrient in some way, shape, or form. There's even a progress tracker to see where all that stuff is going. On top of that, it's also very interesting because over on Blue Sky, someone on the Internet Archive does not necessarily seem to be happy with this. Now, I'm not going to lie here. I'm a little bit confused as to what's going on. I mean, Jason Scott is a free-range archivist at the Internet Archive. Yet he says this: if a do-gooder attempts to mirror Myrient into the Internet Archive, I will personally be at the foot of your bed when you next wake up. And I would say someone rightfully points out, working for the Internet Archive, yet you're actively against the preservation of one of the biggest digital libraries on the internet. If anything, you should be honored, yet here you are instead being a hypocrite against the very thing you supposedly stand for. And then Jason says, oh no, preserve it all you want. Someone else points out, you literally just said preserving it was bad. Jason then says, can preservation only happen at the Internet Archive? And someone else says, no, but it's more than a little hypocritical to get upset over preservation on a place literally called the Internet Archive. So let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I mean, I believe we talked about it in yesterday's video, but there was around 390-ish terabytes of data. And so taking a look, maybe the Internet Archive doesn't want 390 terabytes of data just dumped on it right away. Who knows here? Or maybe this is not a threat, but something else. I mean, it wouldn't really be up my alley, but maybe it's up yours. I don't know here. Would you want Jason Scott at the foot of your bed? But moving on from that, next up here, we're talking about gameplay, which is a front end for MS-DOS, ScumVM, Apple II, Atari 800, Amiga, and DSP. And gameplay just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, gameplay version 0.51 is the latest update. And if you're a fan of the Amiga, you may be a fan of this update. So for the Amiga engine, they added hard disk option, added second disk option, added palette correction option, and added a whole bunch of Amiga games. And speaking about games, next up we're talking about TouchHLE, which is a high-level emulator for iPhone OS apps. And TouchHLE seems to be getting more compatible here. There's a brand new game it's now compatible with. So this was posted up on Twitter. Ice Age Dawn of the Dinosaurs 1.4 for iPhone and 1.2.1 for iPad is now supported in the latest preview builds of TouchHLE. And speaking about OSs and stuff posted to Twitter, and heads up, next up we're talking about GrapheneOS, which is an Android alternative. And this is super interesting. I think we talked about these rumors in previous videos, but now it appears to be true. Taking a look here, they say, looks like GrapheneOS is partnering with Motorola for the first non-pixel supported device, based on a leak from a now deleted post. And I think this is really cool for the future of GrapheneOS. Next up, we're talking about a really interesting handheld priced at $70 or $69 if you wanted to be specific, and Rare. So we've talked about this handheld in the past. It's the Super Pocket, but Rare has put out a really interesting announcement. They say, want to carry 14 Rare limited games in your pocket, but lack the spacious leg wallets of a 90s skater. Enter the Hyper Megatech Super Pocket Rare Edition. 14 classic Rare titles built in. Banjo Kazooie optimized to work on a D-pad. Play Evercade Retro Carts available in June. Banjo Kazooie on a D-pad. Let me know your thoughts about that. And speaking about re-releases, next up here we're talking about Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen on the Switch. Now, we've talked about this re-release in previous videos. Nintendo is or has re-released these Game Boy Advance games. Anyways here, someone has taken a look into the ROMs and noticed some very interesting stuff. So firstly here, Meatball132 took a look at this brand new re-release and compared it with the original games and noticed this is a brand new revision and very different from the original ROMs. The re-released ROM does open up in MGBA, but complains about an unimplemented syscall, which presumably means there are some emulator-specific hack shenanigans. On top of that, the game has a word filter implemented in the ROM itself, not as an emulator patch. If you name yourself a swear, your name reverts to one of the several default names. Furthermore here, and this is one of the more interesting pieces, there is telemetry in the new ROM. So they say here, here's something from the emulator code. It sends telemetry about your game's progress to Nintendo. There's quite a lot, including some things that aren't pictured, like which Pokemon you have and what level they're each at. Furthermore here, they say they found a function that initializes the emulator hacks based on the GBA ROM's ID. These are the IDs the emulator recognizes for the Pokemon hacks. BPR and BPG are FireRed and LeafGreen respectively. But AXV, AXP, and BPE are Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, respectively. If you are interested in learning more about this stuff, again, you know where the links are. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below, including the telemetry. And speaking about Pokemon, next up here, we're going from older stuff to new stuff and talking about Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves. And there's a brand new video up on YouTube from Pokemon, the official Pokemon channel, titled First Look, Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves, announcement trailer. Now, we already knew about these games. I would say the games themselves are not a surprise. However, the release date is. We don't have a specific date, but the games have been delayed until 2027. Now, in fairness here, I say delayed, and I also say not a surprise for a couple of reasons. Now, this was an announcement trailer, and a lot of people are seeing this stuff for the first time and seeing the release date for the first time. However, arguably a lot of this stuff has already been leaked, and we've talked about it in previous videos. If you are interested in learning more about that, I'll drop a link to this very interesting Games Radar article in the comments in the GitHub link below. So previously it was leaked that the names were Pokemon Waves and Winds, and also that they were supposed to release in 2026, but now the date says 2027 officially. So 2026, I would say, was the unofficial date, the unofficial leaked date. Anyways, here the leak turned out to be true in terms of the names, but the date is not the same. Let me know your thoughts. And speaking about announcements of new stuff, next up here we're shifting from software to hardware and talking about the Lenovo Legion Go Fold. And this is a really interesting device overall. So this is a laptop, tablet, and gaming handheld hybrid, 3-in-1 per se. A really interesting concept. The screen on this is massive. So let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Unfortunately, I don't have pricing yet, but I don't expect it to be cheap, especially since it's from Lenovo. Taking a look here, the processor is an Intel Core Ultra 7 258V with 32 gigs of RAM. The display on this one is an OLED. It's a folding display from 7.7 inches to 11.6 inches, a 48 watt-hour battery, and even more. Realistically, it seems pretty clunky in a handheld mode, but at the same time, it seems pretty cool based on the concept. And speaking about gaming handhelds and stuff that hasn't released and may not release, next up here, we're talking about the Orange Pi Neo. And it's being reported over on Gaming on Linux that the Orange Pi Neo gaming handheld with Manjaro Linux is now on ice due to component prices. Feel free to check out the article for more information on the matter, and just check out Gaming on Linux in general because I think it's a fantastic website. Anyways, here they say due to high prices of DDR5 RAM and SSDs, the project is currently on ice. Certifications for CE and FCC are now complete. Also, a lot of improvements around the Manjaro Gaming Edition had happened. We are now waiting for a good time to launch the product. And Gaming on Linux weighs in here with a very good point, considering it was going to be releasing with either the AMD 7840U or the 8840U. If they do still manage to get it out, would it even be worth it at this point? Let me know your thoughts about that one in the comments below. I mean, this thing has been cooking for quite a bit. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.